Charmina Saili, who is the Regional Planning Advisor of the Pacific Islands Forum PIF Secretariat. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Excellencies, colleagues, Talafalava, and good afternoon. I'm delighted to be able to share with you some of the experiences of the Pacific in terms of developing our Pacific SDGs roadmap. Now, I'll be focused primarily on the types of mapping exercises that we've been doing in the Pacific that might be of interest to some of the regions and also some of the countries. So why a roadmap and who asked for it? Well, to put it simply, our leaders, our Pacific leaders asked for a roadmap. And why did they ask for it? They were looking ahead in 2015 towards the 2030 agenda. At this time, they already had committed to the Samoa Pathway, and we also had just approved our Framework for Pacific Regionalism in the Pacific. And so the task looked enormous to them. And so what they asked for is that they wanted an integrated, coherent approach to the implementation and monitoring of all these three agendas: the 2030 agenda, the Samoa Pathway, and our own Framework for Pacific Regionalism. So they also asked for one set of regional indicators, and this is quite important, one set of regional indicators that will be able to measure the Pacific's progress in all three frameworks. We will not have three separate reports, three separate sets of indicators. We will have the one set of regional indicators. Now, the purpose of this is primarily to try and manage the complexity and to reduce the reporting burden at the country level. Now, our leaders told us what to do, but they also told us how they want it done. They said they wanted this process to be inclusive and consultative, as well as reduce reporting burden at the country level. And they also told us they needed this work done by September 2017. So you can imagine, quite a very ambitious challenge for us in the region. So to ensure that we do have a process that is inclusive and consultative, we established what we call a Pacific SDGs Task Force. Now, this is a very inclusive task force, which includes all the key stakeholders, our member governments, our regional, bilateral, multilateral development partners, as well as our non-state actors, which includes the private sector and civil society. Now, you can imagine it's a very complex task that our leaders have asked us to do, to integrate all these regional and global frameworks. Now, to unpack that, we looked at three main streams of work. The first one on the slide is really look at what it is that we're going to do. And for us in the Pacific, this is really what the four main global agendas is: the 2030 agenda, the Samoa Pathway, the Paris Agreement, and the Sendai Framework. These are all critical for us in the region. At the regional level, our Framework for Pacific Regionalism will contextualize the implementation of those frameworks. And of course, at the national level, this is very important for us, is our national development plans and our sector plans. Now, yes, it's important to know what it is that we want, but then we also need to know how we are going to implement it and to achieve it. So we also thought we need to look at the means of implementation. And this is where we look towards the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, and the United Nations Development Cooperation Forum. So we wanted to find out, do we have the right financing? Do we have the right effective institutions? Do we have the right capacities? Do we have the right data, statistics, and partnerships to be able to deliver on this ambitious agenda? And finally, the third stream of work that we were looking at is how we're going to know that we've achieved all these things and how are we going to monitor. And this is where the regional set of indicators for the Pacific will come in. Now, to ensure that we do have an integrated approach to all these frameworks, we needed to do a lot of mapping. And so there's 4 levels of mapping that we've done, so I'll quickly take you through them. So the first level of mapping is really a very basic mapping at the macro level. And this is looking at the 2030 agenda, the Samoa Pathway, and our Framework for Pacific Regionalism. And we were quite delighted to find out that there's a lot of alignment. In fact, there was almost 99 to 100% alignment of these 3 frameworks, which made it very easy for us. The second level of mapping we did was that, remember, you recall that 300 partnerships were launched in Samoa in 2014. Now, we wanted to also measure and monitor the implementation and impact of those partnerships on the ground at the country level and at the regional level. We understand there is a global monitoring and reporting, but we wanted to bring the accountability down to the national and the regional level. Now, when we did the mapping, we've identified all these countries. There's 14 of them, and you see across, we've aligned them to the various SDGs, to the various goals. And so what we found is that of the 302 Samoa Pathway partnerships, 74 specific partnerships said that they have something to do in the Pacific and they will deliver for the Pacific. 74 out of 300. And of that 74, we have followed up with our countries, and they said 34 of the 74 are actually delivering. So only 34 out of the 74 promised are active. So this is a concern, but this is the 34 that we will actively be looking at monitoring at the national and also regional level. The third type of mapping that we did is that we take it down to the goal level. So here is an example, Goal 17, the means of implementation, which is very important to us in the Pacific. We've mapped the targets, the Samoa Pathway relevant commitments to Goal 17, the Addis Ababa commitments to Goal 17, as well as the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation commitments. And again, there is significant alignment through all those frameworks. The fourth and final type of mapping that we did is the very important mapping at the national level. We looked at all our national development plans in the Pacific and mapped them against the targets and the indicators of the SDGs and the Samoa Pathway. There are some gaps there. There are also areas of alignment, but we've done that also. And now we've identified what are the common priorities across the Pacific that we can look at in terms of the roadmap. So finally, all that mapping work we've done, we've now identified what is important for us in the Pacific and where the gaps are. And we've now identified about 100 to 140 indicators from the SDGs list that is relevant to the Pacific, that is looking at all our national plans, looking at our regional frameworks and so forth. And this is the regional set of indicators that we will use to measure our progress. And finally, this is what our SDGs roadmap looks like. We have two main parts to the roadmap. The first one is around accountability and reporting. And we've agreed that we're going to do 4 yearly reporting for the Pacific in time for the global, the General Assembly high-level political forum reporting. And that we're also looking at 5 main components on planning and implementation. Now, the 5 components really are around establishing coordination mechanisms, advocacy for SDGs, a regional set of indicators, coordinated support by development partners to the countries in terms of implementation of the SDGs, Samoa Pathway, and so forth. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation and really to bringing in the regional perspective from the Pacific and really looking at these things from a Pacific-centered perspective. Very interesting, the work of your task force. Next on my list is Ms. Francielle Lackling of UNDP Center of Excellence for SIDS. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I am a UNDP Technical Assistant at the Aruba Center of Excellence for Sustainable Development for SIDS. And I would like to share with you guys today this initiative that started or was launched last year. The center was launched as a partnership between the UNDP, the government of Aruba, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And the Aruba Prime Minister, Mike Eman, has a very strong vision for the island with regards to renewable energy to reach this by 2020. And this process was then the idea is to share with the other SIDS how does this actually happen on the ground? What does it take to get all of these institutions aligned? And so last year, the center was launched by coordinating a training that was held on Aruba, where approximately 30 SIDS were present on the island to receive this training on building roadmaps. The idea is to share this on the knowledge platform, and also we are looking at other topics that are relevant for SIDS, such as sustainable tourism and PPPs. The idea is to Aruba to be the catalyst to start sharing these good practices, but also for other SIDS to use this platform to start sharing their best practices as well. So without further ado, I would like to share a video that conceptualizes the center and the idea behind this knowledge sharing platform.
Open the Center of Excellence in Aruba, where we will bring together all the knowledge in the area of sustainability, both in the area of energy, but also socioeconomic aspects of sustainability.
What we want to do with the Center of Excellence for SIDS is really bridge the islands of knowledge. And from this one happy island, which is the slogan of Aruba, we want to work towards creating one happy planet and focus on best practices, sharing best practices in sustainable development around the world.
I like to think of ourselves not as small island developing states, but as large ocean states. And as large ocean states, we realize that the value of ocean is not only to us, but it's to everybody else. We all have to work together.
What fascinates me about the Center of Excellence is that it deals with knowledge, our most renewable resource. And it's exactly that small island states need, is to share the knowledge they have about best practices in sustainable development. Because very often the economies of scale are not there. So sharing best practices, lessons learned, not reinventing the wheel is very important.
Sustainable life on the water, because it encompasses tourism also, and tourism, a lot of the tourism stuff has to deal with water and, you know, looking at the country and what type of resources they have.
The inaugural training of the center was great because we had almost 30 SIDS participating, and the real added value of the training was for people to meet each other face to face and thereon start to build the community and relationships. The center is now working together with the government of Aruba to follow its process on SDG implementation, and we are very excited as the center to share this with all of the SIDS.
The Center of Excellence is truly a networked organization. We have our key partners, which is the government of Aruba, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the United Nations Development Program, and but many other institutions and organizations we've worked with. And we're hoping to partner with many more in the year to come. So please, if you have great knowledge to share, lessons learned, ideas, even things that may not have gone so well, do reach out to us, because we will help you in packaging that knowledge so we can disseminate it for the benefit of all the other SIDS around the world.
Thank you. So for starters, I would like to ask everyone if you can go on the website. It's called sustainablesids.org. You can sign up for the newsletter. Every month we will feature a good practice from a SIDS. We will feature also the process that Aruba is of Aruba's SDG implementation. So it will kind of be like alive, and we can connect and collaborate during this process. Also, if there are any good practices you would like to share, please contact the center, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for presenting the perspective of the Aruba Center of Excellence. This is a great example of something